Welcome to the Terrordome, baby. We swarm. Welcome to the Terrordome. We swarm. Let them know. We swarm, baby. We swarm, baby. All day long.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another week of Tales from the Terrordome. It's your boy Dan. We coming off a fresh Hokies dub down in Raleigh. Very exciting. Not what we were expecting this year. We got Wake Forest this weekend for homecoming. Hashtag this is homecoming. Wake Forest Demon Deacons coming to town. They just lost a heartbreaker. Kind of got screwed, but we're going to talk about it. We got my guy here from the BLEAV Network, the network that I signed up with this year, and we about to bring you something good. His name is Kevin Smith, not to be confused with the famous director, but he was a standout at Wake Forest in his own right. So, my man, how you doing?
Doing good, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here, talk some football. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, we're coming off a very tough loss, but it's a loss that I'll take as the program continues to build with the new head coach.
No, yeah, you guys had Dave Clawson for a number of years, and he was kind of a staple of stability as far as developing and running that slow mesh, and had some ball players in there from time to time. Very consistent head coach, I would say. So, how has it been with the regime change?
Well, as a university, as an athletic program, you sort of get accustomed to it. It was tough to see a great era sort of getting to that phase where it was time for a transition. I have to give the leadership in the athletic department, John Curry, as well as Dave Clawson. I have to give them a lot of credit for coming together and walking away however they decided, doing that at a time to give Wake an opportunity to start the transition, because some programs, you see the transition needed and you could make it too late, and then your program falls behind a year or two more than it normally would. So it was good to see that. But Coach Dickert, man, he's come in and he's made it a point to establish culture, and it has been exciting to see and watching the team get better over the past few weeks, even in the loss. I know, you don't believe in moral victories, but even in that loss, I could tell they got better. And man, he's the gambler a little bit.
Yeah, when we started 0-3 this year, I was fully bought in on moral victories at this point. I was like, there's supposed to be a big regime change in Blacksburg. Like the funding has been in the news and all the stuff, and it was kind of just like, all right, so whatever happens, happens, because Pry's gone now, and we got Phil Montgomery as the interim. Probably a lot of kids are gonna leave like immediately to preserve their red shirt. Like, we don't know, but it's really only been like three have left for the transfer portal, and two allegedly quit. We're not sure. We don't know the full like skinny on that whole situation, but um and that first game was Wofford. That was a victory, obviously, as it should be. They're a very bad FCS team. But then we went down to Raleigh, and CJ Bailey and Hollywood Smothers, they can play some football. And we contained Hollywood Smothers, and we won in very gritty, tough fashion. And it made me think, like, hey, like, it's a vibe season. This is a tailgate season now. Like, whatever happens is a bonus. Like, if we lose, so what? But man, I don't know, man. It's I'm thinking maybe they could look a little respectable down the stretch here, but I'm not for certain.
Well, it's about coming together. And if the interim head coach is able to keep that core group together with the understanding that, hey, I'm going to need you guys to stay in place so we can continue to build this program. And you're always going to have that class that in the middle of that transition that makes the difference and lays the foundation for a major change in the program. If you go back to K-State, I just recently saw a documentary where they went through a transition when they weren't doing well, and then they brought in, I think it was Snyder, head coach, and he turned it around. But they accredited that class that stayed together and went through the not so good times, but kept it together to try to have at least some sort of continuity. Now, all of that becomes difficult with the transfer portal. That has been the game changer and makes that transition a little bit more difficult. Dan, let me ask you something. What has it
Shoot.
been like as a fan and as someone close to the program to see where things are? Maybe not since Beamer, not being able to find that guy when you're talking about a program with a rich tradition.
Yeah, it's been tough because growing up, like, we were winning 10 a year, but it got to
Yeah.
the point where we were winning 10 a year that we would lose one or two that we shouldn't have lost, and then we would feel like it cost us a massive BCS bowl or even in 2007 the national championship game. But but now I would take that in a heartbeat. I would take 10 again because it's just that level of consistency just doesn't exist anymore outside of like two or three teams, I feel like. And Fuente came in. It was like a new look on things. They kept Bud Foster in place. It started out okay, or started out pretty good. We won 10, and then it just like started to unravel slowly. Like, and then you couldn't keep portal like classes together because the portal open. People weren't vibing with Fu. Like, then I think they overcorrected when they brought in Brent Pry. He was a GA under Beamer, trying to get back to the good old days, like the way things used to be,
Mm-hmm.
and just couldn't put it together Sunday through Friday. Couldn't put it together on Saturday, and now they repaired all the recruiting relationships on the trail. Like Fuente kind of alienated Virginia and the local footprint around Virginia, and Pry came in and he repaired that. So the new guy's going to have to come in and not rebuild, but build the program back to a point past where it once was. It's the only thing I'll really accept because I don't want to go back to where we've been, and you need to take it further in this era. And I know it's kind of hard, but you know, there's a ton of kids in the portal, and it's really, I know you have a very small amount of time to evaluate them, but you can hit on them like Terry, like a bunch of our best players the past couple of years have been coming out of the portal. So the blessing is you lose a lot of kids, but the bad part is you lose a lot of kids, or sometimes it's a blessing. It depends on what kind of kids are on the roster, talent level wise. But uh, the blessing is if you get the right coach with the right evals in, you
Mm-hmm.
can turn a build around a lot quicker now than you once were able to.
And that's the key is you have to know how to evaluate players very quickly. And that is where having someone from a position of evaluating players beyond just recruiting players. And so, what does that look like? And I think we're seeing those programs that are able to quickly put the right people in the right place with the NIL and also with the transfer portal. If you can manage those two things now, that's beyond X's and O's. It's almost like you really have to prepare it like an NFL or semi-pro team, where your general manager making the right decision is just as important as who your coordinators are. And
Absolutely.
so, but it's hard to get a large number of people who can do that, because you think about it, if you have 32 teams in the NFL, if you get a scout from each team that says, hey, I'm going to the college ranks to be a GM, that still only fills 16 teams in the college level. So the
Mm-hmm.
rest are still trying to figure out how do you work that, because now in college football you have that business component that comes along with it. But then, you and I will be here all night talking about that. And I know you wanted to get into the game.
Yeah, man. Well, y'all hit Robbie Ashford coming from South Carolina. Seems to be doing well for y'all. And then Damon Claiborne, he's just a Wake product, right? He was a high school recruit, or he came from somewhere.
Well, no, he came straight to Wake, and again, he's
Okay.
been that glue, and again, he's also been one of our best players the past couple of years on the field, and so it's been really great to see him mature in that, just being in the Wake Forest athletic environment. And now to see him embrace Coach Dickert and do the best he can to play through injuries, that he's had some nagging injuries here and there that have kind of, kept him out of the certain games, certain points. And he's still getting some yards, but So it's been great when you can have that continuity at with that level of player.
No, absolutely. And your show, Believe in Wake Forest. When did you start this show, and when did you realize, hey, there is actually a missing like aspect to this whole Wake Forest fan base, that people are actually craving for this type of outlet to have their thoughts heard, or to have what happened every weekend articulated to them? What made you be like, hey, I should do this show?
Well, Dan, there are two things. One, I had already produced and host a show very similar at Wake Forest when I was working there. I did it for 2 seasons. It was called Deek to Deek, and again with the same premise of wanting to keep the Wake Forest fans updated, as well as share the story of Wake Forest athletics. I would interview various student athletes of different sports, whether it was Randolph Childress. I interviewed Josh Howard, uh, Bob Grant, just a number of LaChina Robinson, who's becoming the voice of the WNBA, and just have them share their story and experience as student athletes of Wake Forest and what they're doing now, really to highlight what it means to be a Wake Forest student athlete. And so it started from there, and then the opportunity to work with BLEAV came along, and just really feel that now people want to hear different perspectives. And for me, podcasting is an opportunity to share a different perspective, add a little bit longer form aspect of it than when you see it on television, and then you only have 20 minutes. That's it. And you get the numbers, and you don't really get the backstory. You don't really get the insight from a fan's perspective and alum's perspective. And in my case, as a former player. So and then I know the fan base is excited and they love talking Wake Forest football.
No, absolutely. And Virginia Tech and Wake have some storylines going into this one. We have Donovan Green. You have
Yes.
Braylon Johnson. Karan Prunty from Virginia playing well for y'all. I saw him make several plays on Saturday. Kansas transfer. Well, he went Kansas, then he went to, was it A&T or Central?
A&T.
A&T, and now he's at Wake, and we know about A&T probably because we had Bashal Tootin coming to Virginia Tech and light the world on fire. And also we have the famous meme, the 0-0 Frank Beamer, hands in the air. I'll never forget it. For better or worse, I'll never forget that experience. But yeah, man, it's going to be interesting rolling into Saturday. You guys, the first game was shaky, 10-9 versus Kennesaw State. And then I saw the official account post about how good the defense was, and I was like, man, I don't know, like that's a crazy brag, like 10-9 on Kennesaw. But then it seemed to grow and improve, and then Georgia Tech's no slouch because Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, who I bet on this past weekend, both scored touchdowns, and only one of them did. But y'all did a good job keeping Haynes in check. I think he only had like 20-some yards. Jamal Haynes, not Haynes King, but yeah, it was an interesting game to watch. You guys got some real ball players down there for sure.
Well, and I appreciate that. And you're right. There's a different type of player that Dickert is bringing in, and that's exciting to see. And what I enjoy is being able to add context beyond the numbers. So to your point, you look at 10-9 Kennesaw State, but what that showed beyond the numbers was, again, you're talking about a first-time head coach, 40 plus new players coming in from the portal, 40 plus, if not more. And that first week to be able to gel, get the offense, you got a brand new quarterback in Nashville. So you really have a short amount of time to build any sort of cohesion to play football at a high level. And that's hard to do. And so that 10-9 victory to me was about the defense stepping up. And that has sort of been the Achilles heel of Wake over the past few years, is we've had to outscore teams. And so now to be in the space where, the defense seems to keep getting better and better. It's a different team, And so, but I think it's still made, the players are still Wake Forest typical type players where we're gonna get after you and play hard. And so I'm looking to see how do we respond going into that environment in Blacksburg after you guys are coming off a win. I think that that could be an opportunity for just new energy for the season. Even though you have an interim head coach, how do the players feel? Maybe the players are rallying behind him to be their coach. So with a lot for you guys to play for, and we're playing for a lot, how can we handle that hostile environment? And what's interesting, there are these clips going around YouTube where they show people who are from Europe, different parts around the world, and they're not familiar with American football. And one of the clips they always show is the entrance for Virginia Tech, just to show how rowdy crowds get. And so I want to see how can this team, manage that hostile environment.
Are you coming up for the game?
No, I'm not coming up for the game. That's it's on my bucket list to do it. But so a little bit more about my background. So I spent 8 years working at Wake Forest Athletics in development. And so with that, I've had a lot of travel. And so now that I've transitioned, I kind of want to just sit back and relax a little bit. But I still go. But for that trip, I'm a watch it from home.
I got you. And where do you live now? Are you still in the Winston-Salem area?
Yeah, so I'm still in the area. I just went over for alumni weekend, stay connected with a lot of the guys. And you want to talk about storylines real quick. Last week was an interesting storyline. So I don't know if you remember, I'm going to take you back a little bit to 1999, the year that you guys played Florida State in the national championship. Well, we were playing Georgia Tech at home again. They were ranked. They had Joe Hamilton, who was fighting to be a finalist for the Heisman, but we had to beat them to go to a bowl game, and we eventually did. Fans, it was a close game, storming the field, but one of the players on the team is Georgia Tech's current head coach.
Brent Key.
Yeah, he was on that team. So I'm pretty sure he came with that in the back of his mind. But but that's an interesting storyline. That's a part of being the ACC. When you have a strong conference, there are going to be so many storylines intertwined.
Yeah, it's I remember we entered in 2004. Back then you never would fathom, like, you just couldn't fathom, like, conference realignment, like Tech's leaving the Big East for the ACC. Like, you just never thought that would happen, especially because it was a premier basketball conference and should be again. They need to fix that. We need to be. I mean, we still do well come tournament time in the ACC, but we can't be letting the SEC have it all, man. We got to get back to hooping. Wake had Chris Paul. Like, it's just, it needs to happen. But they were trying to bolster football. They brought in Miami, Virginia Tech, a couple other schools, and it's just been every year. I feel like it's just a crapshoot. Like, there is so much chaos within the ACC conference football play that it's really must-watch television. And I think obviously I don't like UVA at all, but that game on Friday was great for eyes of like people watching, like, oh wow, that conference isn't a joke. It's more than Clemson. It's more than Florida State. So I feel like a lot of these games, like the big games on Saturday, just to prove a point, were kind of bad. Like Ohio State or Oregon and Penn State was good at the end, but you had NC State, Virginia Tech at the same time. They were in a rock fight. And then earlier in the day, you had Wake and Georgia Tech. Ended up being a great game, although you didn't come out on the correct end of it. But it was still like there was still a compelling drama throughout the day, and it was within a lot of those mid-tier games.
So you're right, and that I think that shows the strength of the ACC. And what typically happens, you brought up a good point with basketball. Whenever you see major coaching transitions, that's when you're going to see the conference maybe take a dip because those coaches have to come in, get established, get their programs going, and then you'll see it come back. And so if you look at those years when maybe people had their thoughts about the ACC, you didn't see that stability in coaching. Now you're starting to see it a little bit, but I definitely I'm an ACC guy. I'm always going to be biased, but I think that we do a good job of pushing what we have. And so while the conference realignment may look chaotic, for me, having worked in athletics and was there at Wake as they were talking about conference realignment, if you really look at it, it made a lot of sense from a television coverage and awareness standpoint. So now with Stanford, Cal, SMU added, it broadens the viewership. You're talking about California and Texas now being able to watch more competitive games that normally they may have been, shut out of. So someone in Texas now who subscribes to the ACC network, they're being able to be exposed to all of the great talent in the ACC, and there's just the competitiveness when it comes to the on the field activities, as well as the academic reputations of the institutions.
No, absolutely. I have dealt with Stanford a little bit. Their softball team, the baseball team, did an East Coast trip this past spring, and they stayed at the hotel that I run food and beverage for. And I was talking to them, and they were like, "Man, the schedule is brutal." It was like, as much as we had to travel back and forth, like when we do an East Coast trip, we just try to keep it like all East Coast at the same time so we can just run the gauntlet. But they were just like, man, it's just absolutely crazy because Tech is blessed. We had to go to Stanford last year, but Cal's coming to us this year, and we don't go to Texas until 2027. So it's looking a little better for us. I always said if you were going to add those two schools from the West Coast, you might as well have gone after Oregon State and Wazoo as well and just had like a little group over there. But I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I just, just again, working in athletics, things are going to evolve. And there's an enterprise aspect of it, because just the game itself, to produce a college football game, is expensive. It is very expensive. And so the more larger viewerships that you can get, the more you can broaden the brand. So when it's time to renegotiate your television deal, you go from being able to cover the deep south to the mid-Atlantic, part of the Northeast, to now you're being able to add Texas and California and a few states in between, just by adding those schools with pretty big names in their respective states. And so again, it's hard to look beyond the athletic part of it, but I think you have to, when you look at what college athletics continues to evolve into, and those that are ready to evolve and can adapt, they will be successful. And then you're going to have some that I think, many people have criticized Dabo for staying with his stance and how he engages the portal and NIL. And it just comes down to, as many other people have said, either you adjust or you essentially will evolve yourself out of the game if you don't adjust. I mean, think about how shocking the forward pass must have been. If people are think about it, if people are going haywire over NIL and the portal, imagine how blown away they were by the forward pass or the pulling guard or imagine how crazy they went when they started blitzing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's the thing with Dabo is they were getting talent before, like they were getting premier talent before the portal was a thing, NIL was a thing. So it was kind of like, now it's kind of looking suspect that you're not getting the same people, but you aren't trying to go out and get them. It's almost like, hey, like everybody, the playing field is somewhat even in terms of anybody can offer a bag now if they have it. So it's kind of like, what were y'all doing? Like, why are you refusing to get with the times when it seems like, hey, maybe you were already doing it before you were allowed to do it. You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of it is principle, man. A lot of coaches let me tell you, I love my head coach, Coach Caldwell, all head coaches, assistant coaches, a lot of respect for what they do. They put a lot of hours and make a lot of sacrifices, but they can be very stubborn. They are very stubborn in their mindset because their mindset has been developed and it leads to winning. And so it's hard to make those adjustments when you've been essentially, you think about it, he's been groomed a certain way, but
Hmm.
now it's about how can you adjust. And again, some coaches have left because of NIL and the portal, but others have adjusted and said, hey, we're going to make the most of it. And that's the teams that you're seeing be successful. But I also think it brings a lot of parity. You and I mentioned earlier about some key players at Virginia, some players at Wake, some players at Virginia Tech, players all across the country are getting plucked from HBCU teams
Jamari
that
Taylor.
in the past it was very difficult to make that transition just because of the transfer rules themselves. So
Hmm.
now teams are saying, I don't care where you're from, I don't care about anything. Can you play? If you can play, we are going to find you and give you an opportunity. And that's what it should be about anyway. And so a lot of
Right.
guys are getting more opportunities to play at higher levels because they can just flat out play.
Lane Kiffin's quarterback was D2 last year.
Exactly.
That's crazy. From Division 2,
Exactly.
like that's a lot of steps up. Like FC, like D, like FCS, G5, P4, like that. And he is putting it on him. He's slinging that pill. Like
Yeah.
he is beating
Again,
these great teams.
the only question you ask is, can he play?
Yep.
And when you get down to that aspect of evaluating a player, you don't have to. You don't really get into how tall they are. Can you play this game of football at your respective position? And like you said, normally, what would have happened to this kid normally if he had started out at a D2 school? The highest he probably would have gone up is what we used to know as Division 1 AA, if it was before the transfer rules.
Yep.
So I understand how some people are very skeptical about it, but for 99.9% of these student athletes on say football, 99.9%, this is their last 4 to 5 years. This is it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so having been a player that came from the difficult transfer era, I will say though there's a lot of value in being at the same place. I mean, the friendships I've gained just from that are lifelong friendships, and you build those traditions of playing against teams, the home and away, and just that camaraderie of the rivalry. It's something special about it. But at the same time, I can understand the kids saying, "Hey, I've got 4 years of eligibility for the rest of my life. That's it. So
Hmm.
I want to maximize and play so I can go out with, playing the game that they enjoy and love kind of on their own terms, because that's it. That is
Yeah.
it after that. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm with you on that. Like I miss sort of like all of me is extremely happy for the kids getting paid. Like that should be a thing. I am very pro player. But there is a part of me that misses like knowing the roster every year, like knowing like you win a recruiting battle with a kid, you're getting him 2 to 3 years, maybe 4. 5 years is very rare anymore. Normally after 3, if
Yeah.
they're good enough, they're in the league. But now it's kind of like a free for all with the money and the portal. It's kind of like there are no real rules. It was kind of like the NCAA was kind of like, here, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, do do what you want. But I do think that we're probably transitioning towards contracts, like 2 to 3 year deals. If all this money is being thrown around, I think teams are going to want some sort of promise or stability. Monthly payments. If you enter the portal, I think now with the rev share, your payments stop typically, or at least from the school. Your independent NIL deals, that's different. But I do think that there needs to be. I think it's great that people are getting paid whatever they're leaving college set already. So when they start that job that they're going to start, they're not struggling to pay back whatever, or they're in a tremendous amount of debt already. Like so, I think that part is good, but I think that needs to be reined in a little bit, or at least structured a little
Yeah.
better.
I agree that there should be some structure so that there is So universities and athletic programs aren't just left holding the bag.
Right.
But I also, coming from the era of not being able to get paid, I can understand that, a lot of people don't understand that there's a narrative. And so a lot of people are confusing NIL with pay for play and the portal. Those are three different things. NIL, I don't think should be a restriction. If you have put yourself out there with your talent, your name and image, or if you've just decided that, hey, I'm going to do things on my social media that's going to get attention, go for it. You've earned that
Right.
on your own name, image, and likeness. Now, pay for play, which is, in some spaces now after the court settlement, is revenue sharing. That's where I think it gets to be more fair. And that's where I think around that, you're going to see more of the structure. You see, there are going to be some buyouts, and if you want this player, you're going to have to pay the university X amount of dollars. And so now I think that's going to adjust who goes in the portal for what, because again, it's not going to be, as some people have said, the wild, wild west in the West once you add that structure. But also, I would say have a little for those fans that don't like it. Understand that again, these student athletes know after their eligibility is up, they're never going to make this amount of money in a lump sum for a number of years. And on top of that, what was it before? You couldn't really earn anything. They limit the amount of money, the hours that you could work back in the day. And again, when you're a student athlete, you miss out on internship opportunities because you're working out. So you don't always have the freedom to spend an entire semester studying abroad, building relationships to prepare yourself for life after. So you're oftentimes entering the workforce with zero work experience, where your competition, your fellow students and alums, they've had internships, they built relationships because they've had more of the time. So I think this helps sort of, level the playing field in terms of making sure you're set up for life afterwards.
I agree. And speaking of what you said earlier, the can he play thing, Wake Forest, Winston-Salem is in the midst of a hotbed for talent, the 336, all that. Like, a lot of kids are, like, a lot of schools are coming in there and being like, hey, we like this kid's good. Let's offer him. Like, he could change the game for us. Like, we had Hendon Hooker ended up going to Tennessee. He was from out that way. So how does your Dickert, how do you think he approaches and is able to cultivate the relationships with all the local kids enough to get them to come to Wake Forest versus potentially like maybe NC State or Florida State or like these other schools?
Well, first of all, he hired someone. His name is Mark Holcomb. He's a former high school head coach in the area, and at first you have to have the right staff that can build those relationships. And to be honest, you have to do it the old-fashioned way. It's not going to come from social media posts. It's going to come from picking up the phone, calling the head coaches, building those relationships, spending that time. Really, I would say resurfacing the pipeline. And again, but we have to have something to offer, because now kids have so many options, but at the same time, we have a lot of options of recruiting. Whereas, with a lot more room and again, that visibility, I think because of playing the ACC schedule with the conference realignment, adding in some of those teams, we can get a kid out of Texas. We can get a kid out of California because they've seen us play. And so, but I think you always do want to win your state with recruiting. I think that's just a part of college athletics. And North Carolina has quietly produced a lot of high level student athletes in a lot of different sports, but we just tend to do it. We tend to do it quietly.
No, that's a fact. It's
So
definitely a lot of competition. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, let me ask you something from VTech's perspective. Where do you, if you had a crystal ball, what would you like to see over the next 2 or 3 years in the football program with the new head coach? What would you like the culture to be? After having experience and seeing the culture that Beamer built, what would you like to see as the culture of that team when they step out there on Saturday?
I would like to see as far as the way the team is built. I would like to see a good balance between development and also go get them out of the portal. I would like to see a level of dog come back to the program. Very tough. Like, yeah, you played us, win or lose, you felt it. Like you had to see us. Like, I want kids that, like, I know it doesn't happen anymore very often, but like that I gotta beat you to eat type of mentality. Uh
Yeah.
I feel like a lot it's kind of lost a little bit now, like because everybody's making money, so that nobody's like, I know it was a terrible situation, but like kids used to like, I mean, they used to be like, this is my ticket to there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I
Right.
got to destroy you to get to it. So I would like to see that come back. I would like to see it be very disciplined and structured yet pro player. I want it to be a good environment for kids. Like to come in, they can make some money. They're gonna become better people when they leave. They can, like, I want the like people to be able to get jobs. To know, like Fran Brown doing the Syracuse 60 up there. He said
Mhm.
60 days after you leave, I want to get you a job. I think that's great. Like we should be doing things like that. I want to get back to just like, hey, Virginia Tech, semi-perennial playoff team. I would love to be a perennial playoff team, but I'm just asking for baby steps here. I would just like to get back to being respectable and like playing hard all the time and not giving away one score games. I would like to bring some toughness back to what they do.
Yeah, that's important to be able to see a team that reflects a good culture, because you can really build off of that. And that was one of the things Dickert wanted to come in and push and establish what his culture is. And I think looking ahead to Saturday, when I look at our team and I look at you guys and what you're doing, you're coming in with the momentum. You went into Raleigh, and now you're coming back home. I think for us, if we're going to have a shot at this game, I think we're going to have to play hard and fast. We cannot play a game with a bunch of mistakes, especially against a team that is now seeing some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Again, the way you guys won and the way we lost, are we still, feeling a hangover from, letting one slip away against Georgia Tech? Are we still feeling a hangover from that blown call by the referee? And so now this game is going to be about mental toughness, and are we going to get better? So the defense is going to have to play well, but the offense can Ashford take another steps forward. I'm not sure if Claiborne's going to play just yet. I've heard, yes, no, he has this, and I know Wake rarely gets into the details of a player's injury for a lot of reasons. Uh, so we'll have to see how that turns out with him, but one thing I was glad to see was that, at first, man, when he went for the win, at first I thought bad call, go for the one, go for the
Mhm.
tie, go to the next overtime. But after I had a chance to think it through, I thought that's a coach I want to play for that's going to make that type of call. He believes enough this soon in his team that against the number 16 ranked team, we're going to get this 2-point conversion in overtime. You want that. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
while we didn't get that win, I still believe we played a lot better and got better very quickly. So again, we're only 4 games in, so I can imagine, we can hopefully, pick off a few more and be in a good position towards the end of the season and try to make a run. But again, we're going to have to, if I had to break it down, we're going to have to, one, deal with a hostile environment, two, play good, hard, tough football for 4 quarters. But and 3, we're going to have to play fast and hard. And finally, we're going to have to not make stupid mistakes. It just can't happen. In terms of penalties, it cannot happen, especially against a team that is trying to catch fire and you're on the road. So, those are the things I think it's going to take for us to have a chance at the end of the ball game to try to get a win. What do you
Yeah.
think? If you had to pick out some of the keys for you guys to pull one out, what do you think that would be?
Well, one would be no mental mistakes. We've had too many over the course of the last couple of years. We had one on Saturday that almost cost us. We had a false start on a 43-yard field goal that made it 48. Lucky our kicker is NFL caliber, so he nailed it still. But you can't have that because we won by 2. So if you had missed that, we lose by 1. And it'd be another one-score game yet again that has been lost in the past 4 years. I'm gonna have to contain Robbie Ashford. If you can just let him run wherever he wants, like he's just gonna use his legs, I feel like. And that's not, you don't want, if a quarterback can run everywhere and doesn't have to throw the football, then that's not a good day for you. Georgia Tech made got a lot of W's off of that back in the Paul Johnson days. But they're definitely going to have to play discipline. They're going to have to play full go, 110%. You're 2-3. Getting to 3-3 is absolutely vital to this team. I think if you get to 3-3, it's kind of like a reset under this new interim era. I think they'll really start to believe like they might be able to do some things against and punch up against a couple teams. Whereas if they drop to 2-4, it's kind of hard. It's a big letdown after that emotional win to come back home for homecoming. Crowd is there, they're in it, and you drop one like that. If Claiborne doesn't play, I think it'll be an easier day for Virginia Tech. Not necessarily like super easy, but obviously like if he's on the field, it's way more difficult to defend that team than if he's not on the field. He's just that good, in my opinion. He's been churning out. He has several games over the centennial mark this year already. It's just, and you got Prunty on the defense. He plays hard. Braylon Johnson, one of the smartest football kids I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's just Kyron Drones has to continue to play with confidence. He can't second guess open receivers. Our receivers have to catch the ball. There were 6 or 7 bad drops, like great passes, bad drops on Saturday. Had to clean that up. They just have to go out there and play like loosey goosey. Like, hey, nobody expects it, so let's just do it. Because like there's no real expectation. Like coach is fired. Season is not necessarily. It doesn't have to be lost, but I don't feel like there's any pressure on them. So you might as well just go out there and play like there's no pressure on you.
And that makes you guys dangerous.
Yeah,
that makes you guys
it.
very dangerous to a team that has a lot that they're still, again, Waite's coming in at what, 2-2.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to come out of Blacksburg 3-2, going into the bulk of your ACC schedule, we're going to need as much again, but we're coming in hopefully not having a hangover from how the game ended. I mean, I'm still, I could see in a team when you get a blown call like the offsides call that we had at the end of the game that cost us 40 seconds, which in the grand scheme of the game doesn't seem like a lot, but when you have 2 minutes left on the clock, 40 seconds is a lot. And so to have blown that call, I could see where the momentum went from the game to focusing on being upset over the blown call. And I felt that there were a couple of plays where for me, I could tell some players were still caught up in that moment of the blown call. And so I hope that mentally they can, move on from that. And because if they're in a situation in Blacksburg where just say they get down early, does that now creep back in like, oh man, here we go again? So it's a lot. That's why sometimes, we can get caught up in the numbers and stats, but there's always a bigger story behind the numbers, and while numbers don't lie, they can be misleading.
That is a fact. We had that happen to us last year. That Miami game, they didn't reverse that touchdown at the end, and we beat Miami. I think the season might have gone a little different, but it kind of, I feel like it put a poison into the team. I don't know that I don't think they quite recovered from it, but I mean, we ended up going to a bowl game, but it wasn't nearly as good as beating. We needed the way it had been for Brent Pry at that point. They needed to win that game, and to have it and then to not have it 5 minutes later, it's crazy. And now full transparency in the ACC review room, which is cool to me. Like being able to hear the process. I mean, it kind of ruins the
Yeah,
suspense, but at the same time, like I would have loved to have been in the room to hear the way they decided that one because I've
yeah.
seen some since that were called touchdowns and stayed touchdowns. So I don't know.
I think that was, and that changed being able to, kind of to hear and see what they're going through in terms of their decision making. I think that was a nice element to add without a lot of fanfare leading up to it. You didn't hear about the discussion with the ACC schools, what they thought about it, it just was, hey, this is what we're going to start doing. And I think it's going to make a lot of referees even more aware of what they're doing and saying. And my thing is, why not? Some people remember the backlash against instant replay. Oh, it'll
Yeah.
take too long. Look at the number of games and the amount of money that has probably changed hands because of instant replay. So
Yeah.
it's always good for me. I like to see the game evolve. It's there's something like, for example, some people are, will say, man, back in the day the game was tougher. Yeah, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't as athletic. Yeah, there were big hits,
Hmm.
but it's not fun seeing your wide receiver that you need get laid out in the second quarter. Now you don't have him.
Right.
And I'll tell you what else you don't have is jersey sales if that player gets knocked out. Now all of those kids in the stands with the jerseys on, they're going home.
Yeah.
You done knocked them out the game. And so
Yep.
again, I learned from working there to see that there's a larger part to just the enterprise of college athletics. Um, but yeah, sometimes it's good to see certain things in the game evolve. Even watching what some people call it the slow mesh,
Hmm.
but it worked for us.
Oh, when it
It
worked, it
worked. It
worked
worked
good.
for a lot of people criticizing. I'm saying 7 straight bowl games, and you want to change the offense? Like,
Mm.
please, someone offer an explanation why we need to change the offense that has produced 7 straight bowl games. And but also the pressure seems to be going up in college athletics to win. I remember when bowl games were special. Now it's
Yeah.
like, we got to make the playoffs, and which is cool, but a lot about the game has really, really evolved, more than I probably could have imagined back then. Even just the safety elements of it.
Bowl games are fun, man. Like what I went to.
Fun for
I went
who? For
to.
who?
Hey, I had a
See,
good time at the
no,
Duke's
no,
Mayo
that
Bowl,
see
man.
you no man. Let me tell you, as a player, bowl games, those postseason bowl games, they are not what everybody thinks they are. We went to, and it's not the game itself. Let me take that back. Those are fun. But when you're practicing for a bowl game, you're not just out there lollygagging. You're going to scrimmage.
Hmm.
I remember a few times we had tour days because, again, you're there from Thanksgiving until the bowl game. You
Yeah.
might get to go home if you're lucky, but while everyone else is home enjoying the holidays, time with family, you're there with your teammates and coaches, and you may be practicing early morning and afternoon. Before we went to the Aloha Bowl, we went tour days. So,
Mm.
and I'm like, but again, it's not so much for the seniors, it's for the younger players. They get extra practices, extra reps, because at that point, if you don't understand the game plan 12 games into the season, you're not going to get it. You
Right.
just not. So it's really for younger players to get the practice. But again, you hear that you're in a bowl game and it's like, we got 2 days for what? But then you have to stay in shape as well. So while the game itself is fun, it's good to be in a different atmosphere, but the preparation, no, that's okay. That's okay. No.
I had a good time with the Duke's Mayo Bowl last year. I thought they'd do a great job with that bowl, but yeah, I wasn't
Oh yeah.
practicing. I was just drinking, so it was it was different for me. I
Yeah.
love Charlotte. Charlotte's a great town, great
They
city.
they do. They host the ACC very well. Very well. We've when we played in the ACC championship against Pitt, had an opportunity to be down there in the area, really see how they roll out the red carpet. And I think Charlotte is that major city that still holds on to that Southern hospitality as well.
Yeah, man. Charlotte, great city. Winston-Salem's a great city, man.
Man, Winston-Salem is changing. If you get a chance, you get a chance to come down for when the Hokies is on the road here, basketball. I have to show you the development that is going on around the area. Winston is growing. Greensboro is growing. North Carolina, if you look at it, man, has had a lot of growth since. I would even go back to 2000, 2006 when it really started with Charlotte, Raleigh. Even during the economic downturn in 2007, 2008, Raleigh was still growing. And so the secret about North Carolina is out. I mean, you're talking about great university system, great weather, beach, very similar to Virginia. And,
Yeah.
access to midpoint between, New York and Miami. So a lot of people started looking and the opportunities and jobs. So it's really growing in this area. And Winston is a great place to raise a family. I mean, it really is. Now, if you're looking for 24-hour partying, it might not be the place. You might want to go over to Greensboro. No offense to Greensboro. But as far as a place to raise a family, this is it's nothing better, in my opinion.
I got you. Kevin, man, I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come on here and let the people know about Wake Forest. It was a pleasure to have you on. It's a very strong network, I think, that we belong to. I think there's a lot of good content creators
Yep.
on Believe. If you're coming, if all the people listening are coming to the game on Saturday, we're going to start tailgating at 8 a.m. We're making biscuits and gravy on the Blackstone. I won't be. My boy
Wait a
Steven,
minute.
he's in
You didn't
charge of that.
tell me that. You didn't tell me you were doing all
Yeah.
of that. You just said, "Oh, are you going to the game?" You made it seem as if you just have some random ticket somewhere. You don't really know. You're tailgating. You're taking a Blackstone and making biscuits. I may
And
have to
gravy.
rethink my choices for Saturday.
And we'll have a
I may
big
have
bourbon
to do that.
table. Big bourbon
Oh,
table. Yeah. Ice cold beer in the cooler. I'm the vibes guy. Steven's the chef. He gets it going, but we're excited for good weather still in the month of first weekend of October.
yep.
68 degrees and sunny it's supposed to be. So I'm hoping 1 o'clock on the CW that the game, obviously I want it to go in my favor, but I'm hoping that it's just a great game all around.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think it'll be a good game. It's going to be good for college football and the ACC. We want to see a real tough matchup. So you're going to have. I tell you what, take a nice long drink for me Saturday, and I'm going to get. I'm going to come up to a game at some point.
Yeah, you need to. You can come tailgate with us, man. I will host you.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. We get down, man. We get to it. We like to tailgate. This weekend it's going to be interesting. We got the youth movement going in Blacksburg. We got a lot of we got like 3 true freshmen making big plays this past Saturday. So, which is good because I love the portal. But if you're recruiting high school kids that are coming in and can make an impact right away, then I think you're evaluating something correctly because it's hard. The portal tape is there. You've seen the college work, but to predict that they're going to come from the high school level to a Power 4 level and play right away and produce, that's a different level.
Yeah, people forget we're still talking about 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
These are not grown adult. They're still young people, and they make mistakes. But that's the beauty of college football.
Absolutely. Kevin, man, I appreciate it. Let the people know where they can find your stuff at.
So it's on the Believe Network. That's BLEAV, Wake Forest Football. Believe Wake Forest Football, and they can check it out on all your major platforms for your podcast. And take us a listen, Dan. It's been great to be here. Good to talk some football. Talk about the game coming up. Again, with Virginia Tech having established themselves in the ACC, it's always good when we can come together and have some great conversations.
Absolutely. And good luck to the Deeks. And as always, go Hokies.